Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Fermin, and I teach biology at Coral Glades High School in Coral Springs, Florida. Today I'm going to be talking to you about a man named Vygotsky, and more specifically, his developmental theory of social interaction. By the end of this presentation, students will be able to describe Vygotsky's theory of social interaction, describe Vygotsky's background, and explain the assumptions that guide Vygotsky's theory. Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky believed that the mind is a powerful place, a place where, given the right tools, a person can solve problems and create solutions. According to Vygotsky, children must learn how to use these tools to become masters of their own environment, and that culture plays a significant role in cognitive development. Lev Vygotsky was born in 1896 in the western region of Russia, which is now Belarus. His parents were a well-educated and wealthy Jewish family and were able to provide well for their 8 children. Vygotsky first studied law and later became interested in psychology, earning a PhD from the Moscow Institute of Psychology. He made significant contributions to the field of child development, including postulating his own theory on socio-cultural interactions. He wrote 270 scientific articles that would not be published in the West until later in the 1960s. Although he was a prominent psychologist, his papers were often banned by Stalin during the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Unfortunately for Vygotsky, he lived a very short life and died at the age of 37 from tuberculosis. He did, however, leave behind a legacy that is still used in classrooms throughout the world today. Vygotsky believed that children learned from adults in a systematic manner with manageable direction and meaningful direction. He argued that learning is a necessary and universal aspect of the process of developing culturally organized, specifically human psychological function. There are 6 major assumptions to Vygotsky's theory. I will first list them and then discuss each individually. These 6 assumptions include: adults convey culture through conversation. During the first years of life, thought and language become independent. Social activities give rise to complex mental processes. Assisted by competent adults, children are able to perform challenging tasks. Cognitive growth occurs in children who perform these challenging tasks, and cognitive growth occurs in children through play. First, let's look at adults convey culture through conversation. Conversations can either be informal, like the mother and daughter walking along the street, or formal, like the mother and daughter sitting together and reading a book. Vygotsky suggested that it didn't matter whether the conversation was taking place in a setting of academia or whether it was casual, that culture was being conveyed. During the first years of life, thought and language become independent. Vygotsky split these into 2 different subsections. He called the first pre-intellectual speech. This is speech to communicate and happens at the stage of 0 to 12 months. This is, for example, when babies are crying or babies are laughing. They are communicating, although they are unable to use words. The second subsection is speech to think. In other words, anonymous speech. This means that when babies at approximately 12 months of age begin to start talking, they are unable to say specific words, but they can start to correlate sounds to meanings. For example, in the picture below, the baby is saying ba, And we know that the baby wants the bottle for ba. As I said, this usually happens at around 12 months and continues through life. Social activities give rise to complex mental processes. Vygotsky argued that children internalize events and will make them their own. Basically, what this means is if a child, for example, in the first picture, is shaking hands with an adult, once he has gone through that process, he internalizes that movement and then knows that he needs to shake hands to greet people. This is a cultural way of greeting, and depending on where you live, it will depend on how the greeting is occurring. In the second picture, you have children clapping and laughing at perhaps a performance. The children understand that by clapping, they are showing the performers that they are happy, that what they are learning is making them entertained. This is also a complex mental process that is happening simply through the use of culture. Finally, in the picture on the bottom, there are 3 children flipping through a book. While the youngest child at the end most likely cannot read, the other children are expressing the pages, the pictures, and the words, and the youngest child is picking up on what they are saying. That child is internalizing the event and making it their own, beginning to organize the information in ways that he can understand. Assisted by competent adults, children are able to perform challenging tasks. Vygotsky called these 2 stages actual development and your level of potential development. He believed that this was a very important milestone in how children become culturally integrated and learn. If you look at the pictures under actual development, you will see that the little girl is painting, but her painting doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The little boy is looking at some puzzle pieces, but he is unsure exactly what to do with those puzzle pieces. Once an adult steps in that has a higher level of understanding, the adult is able to help and to guide that child. For example, in the first picture, under the level of potential development, the adult is guiding the child to paint. Now the child will be able to make a more understandable representation of the picture that they are wanting to paint. In the picture below, the adult is now helping the child put the pieces of the puzzle together. The child is now able to reach a higher level of development by having the help of a competent adult. Cognitive growth occurs in children who perform challenging tasks. Well, this does go hand in hand with the previous slide. What Vygotsky called this particular theory was something called the zone of proximal development. It's very common sense, but you need to understand it in order to make it work. The zone of proximal development says this: there are 3 situations where learning will occur. At the first situation, learning is too easy and no growth is happening for the child. When it's right in the middle, it's just right. It is just challenging enough and not too easy. It is just right for the child to learn and to grow. Finally, if the learning is too hard, if the thing that they are learning is too challenging, the child will become frustrating. And once again, there will be no growth because the level of frustration is more than the child's ability to learn. If we take a look at these following pictures on this slide, you can see what's happening very easily. On the one side, you have the little girl. She has been given a book that is too easy for her. She becomes bored. She doesn't want to do the task. It is too easy, and therefore she is not growing. If we go all the way over to the other side, on the other extreme, you can clearly see from the picture that the child is frustrated. The task that he has been given is too hard. It is too challenging for him, and therefore he cannot learn. There is no growth. He basically shuts down. Join back in the middle, and you will see a group of children sitting around a table, and they all appear to be very engaged. The task that they have been given is just right for their learning capabilities. They are able to engage in the project without being bored and without being frustrated. Once again, this is the zone of proximal development, the area where learning takes place that is just right. Finally, Vygotsky argued that cognitive growth occurs in children through play. He said that not all education must be formal, but by simply playing, young children will pick up on cultural interactions and develop and internalize those interactions as their own. If we take a look at the following examples, we will discuss what each of these children are gaining from the task that they are developing. In the first picture, we have two young boys playing with cars. Although they seem to just simply be playing, subconsciously they are internalizing the event of driving the cars and of working together. If we go over to the side and look at the picture of the young girl feeding the baby a bottle, that little girl is way too young to actually take care of a real baby. She's a baby herself. But she is playing and pretending to feed a baby. She is internalizing the process that one day she will use as a grown-up. Below her, two little boys in imaginative play, dressed up like pirates. They are once again internalizing a behavior that later in life they will use on a job market. And finally, the last picture shows two little girls playing veterinarian or doctor. Obviously, they are too young to be veterinarians or doctors. But by going through the motions of what a doctor or a veterinarian does, those little girls are culturally interacting with something that an adult does, with a way of performing a task that they will use later in life. As your assessment today, please do the following 3 questions. Number 1, read the following. Which one of Vygotsky's assumptions does this fit? A first grade child is given a simple book on ABC identification. She puts her head down on her desk and yawns. The teacher gives the girl a beginner reader book and the girl becomes engaged. Number 2, what was Vygotsky's theory of socio-cultural interaction? And finally, number 3, describe the difference between a child having an informal and a formal conversation. Thank you for watching my presentation today. I hope this was helpful in learning about Lev Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development. And if you have any questions, you can always reach me at my email, jlfermin@gmail.com. Thanks very much.